Club Snobs by William Makepeace, Thackeray, 1859. Both sorts of young men, mentioned in my last under the flippant names of Wiggle and Waggle, may be found in tolerable plenty, I think, in clubs. Wiggle and Waggle are both idle. They come of the middle classes. One of them very likely makes believe to be a barrister, and the other has smart apartments about Piccadilly. They are a sort of second chop dandies. They cannot imitate that superb listlessness of demeanor and that admirable vacuous folly which distinguishes the noble and high-born chiefs of the race. But they lead lives almost as bad, were it but for the example, and are personally quite as useless. I'm not going to arm a thunderbolt and launch it at the heads of these little Pall Mall butterflies. They don't commit much public harm or private extravagance. They don't spend £1,000 for diamond earrings for an opera dancer, as Lord Tarquin can. Neither of them ever set up a public house or broke the bank of a gambling club, like the young Earl of Martingale. They have good points, kind feelings, and deal honorably in money transactions. Only in their characters of men of second-rate pleasure about town, they and their like are so utterly mean, self-contented, and absurd that they must not be admitted in a work treating on snobs. Wiggle has been abroad, where he gives you to understand that his success among the German countesses and Italian princesses whom he met at the tables d'hôte was Italian princesses, and perfectly terrific. His rooms are hung around with pictures of actresses and ballet dancers. He passes his mornings in a fine dressing gown, burning pastilles and reading Don Juan in French novels. By the way, the life of the author of Don Juan, as described by himself, was the model of the life of a snob. He has two-penny, halfpenny French prints of women with languishing eyes, dressed in dominoes, guitars, gondolas, and so forth, and tells you stories about them. It's a bad print, says he. I know, but I have a reason for liking it. It reminds me of somebody I knew in other climes. You've heard of the Principessa di Montepulciano. I met her at Rimini. Dear, dear Francesca, that fair-haired, bright-eyed thing in the bird of paradise, and the Turkish simar of the lovebird on her finger. I'm sure it must have been taken from somebody perhaps whom you don't know, but she's known at Munich. Waggle, my boy, everybody knows the Countess Otilia de Eulen-Schreckenstein. Gad, sir, what a beautiful creature she was when I danced with her on the birthday of Prince Otilia of Bavaria in 1844. Prince Carloman was our vis-a-vis, and Prince Pepin danced the same contredanse. She had a polyanthus in her bouquet. Waggle, I have it now. His countenance assumes an agonized and mysterious expression, and he buries his head in the sofa cushions, as if plunging into a whirlpool of passionate recollections. Last year he made a considerable sensation by having on his table a Morocco miniature case locked by a gold key, which he always wore round his neck and on which was stamped a serpent, emblem of eternity, with the letter M in the circle. Sometimes he laid this upon his little Morocco writing table as if it were on an altar. Generally he had flowers upon it, and in the middle of a conversation he would start up and kiss it. He would call out from his bedroom to his valet, "Hicks, bring me my casket." I don't know who it is, Waggle would say. Who does know that fellow's intrigues? Desborough Wiggle, sir, is the slave of passion. I suppose you've heard the story of the Italian princess locked up in the convent of St. Barbara at Rimini. He hasn't told you? Then I'm not at liberty to speak, or the Countess, about whom he nearly had the duel with Prince Witikind of Bavaria. Perhaps you haven't even heard of that beautiful girl at Pentonville, daughter of a most respectable dissenting clergyman. She broke her heart when she found he was engaged to a most lovely creature of high family, who afterwards proved false to him, and she's now in Hanwell. Waggle's belief in his friend amounts to frantic adoration. What a genius he is if he would but apply himself, he whispers to me. He could be anything, sir, but for his passions. His poems are the most beautiful things you ever saw. He's written a continuation of Don Juan from his own adventures. Did you ever read his lines to Mary? They're superior to Byron, sir. Superior to Byron. I was glad to hear this from so accomplished a critic as Waggle, for the fact is, I had composed the verses myself for honest Wiggle one day, whom I found at his chambers plunged in thought over a very dirty, old-fashioned album in which he had not as yet written a single word. I can't, says he. Sometimes I can write whole cantos, and today not a line. Oh, Snob, such an opportunity, such a divine creature. She's asked me to write verses for her album, and I can't. Is she rich, said I? I thought you would never marry any but an heiress. Oh, Snob, she's the most accomplished, highly connected creature, and I can't get out of line. How will you have it, says I, hot with sugar? Don't. You trample on the most sacred feeling, Snob. I want something wild and tender, like Byron. I want to tell her that amongst the festive halls and that sort of thing, I only think about her, that I scorn the world and am weary of it, and something of a gazelle and a bulbul, and a yataghan to finish off with, the present writer observed, and we began. To Mary. I seem in the midst of the crowd the lightest of all. My laughter rings cheery and loud in banquet and ball. My lip hath its smiles and its sneers for all men to see, but my soul and my truth and my tears are for thee, Do you call that neat, Wiggle? Says I. I declare it almost makes me cry myself. Now suppose, said Wiggle, we say that all the world is at my feet. Make her jealous, and that sort of thing, and that I'm going to travel, that perhaps may work upon her feelings.